Okay, so let's work on our heads-up display. In order to get to that, what we're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to your assets, scenes, HUD, heads-up display, HUD. Now, one of the things it tells you to do in the tutorial early is to temporarily disable the pause menu, and you do that by clicking on your pause menu here, and just over here on this inspector window, hitting the check mark, and it'll just kind of take it out. And again, the purpose of this is kind of to have this hearts, keys, and lightning bolt display in your heads-up display. So if you're familiar with a canvas, so basically your game object, there's not one in your HUD, but when you have a canvas object, your game screen is really, really super small, and your heads-up display is really, really super big on the scene window. So that's kind of frustrating. Sometimes it's difficult to navigate. But so basically what we want to do is we want to set this HUD up to load on every level. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the HUD scene load on top of all the other scenes when we start it. Okay, so the pause menu will work a little differently, but it's essentially the same concept. And when you hit start, we want the pause. That'll be later on in the tutorial. But for right now, what we need is our HUD loader to load up at the beginning of every level. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to set up a what is it called? A flow machine, excuse me. We're going to set up a flow macro for this. I'm sorry, not a flow machine. Don't do a flow machine. If you did that, delete that. Go to your macros, macro file, and create a flow macro, and we're going to call that HUD Loader. So call it HUD Loader, and inside that, all we need is a start. So inside your HUD Loader, go to Start Event, and then we're going to take that to Load Scene. Load scene, you need name and mode, and the reason why you need mode there, so let's go HUD, so your scene's name, gotta go back to your scene here, your scene is named HUD, capital letters, and you need mode. So mode is, if you did single, it would stop your other scene and start this one, but we need it on additive, which is going to add it on top of the scene that we're currently on. So every time we hit start, every time we hit that play button, that should come up on top of our loader. So now we are going to need, let's say, save this. We're going to save this, and we're going to go on to level 1. So let's load up level 1, and then we're going to take this, we're going to create an empty game object. Create empty game object, create object, and call this HUD Loader. And then we're going to give that a flow machine. So that's where the flow machine comes in. And then we're going to select, under macros, select this, and you'll see a window that comes up that looks like this, and you just hit HUD Loader. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click on your Prefabs folder. You're going to grab your HUD Loader, and you're going to drag it into your prefab. And what that's doing is that's setting up a prefab just like all the players, so that in every scene, every time we make one change to the HUD, the heads-up display, it's going to be the same for every scene. That's important that we do it this way. So on the right side here, you should see something that looks like this. The position of mine is, wow, that's way out there. I don't care about that. That doesn't matter. Let's see. So that should be correct. You have all that as correct. So now what we need to do, so let's since we don't have to update it because we just made a prefab from this one, let's go to level 2. So let's go back to scenes, level 2, save that, and then now we're going to add that same prefab right there, and we're going to have to do that for every level. So save, go back to your scene, go back to level 3. Now we got level 3 loaded. Go back to your prefabs folder, drag in your HUD. save, and then the last level, level 4, Prefabs, HUD Loader, drag it in there. And so now, when you start the beginning of every level, you should see, so let's go back to level 1. So starting up level 1, we should have hearts. Alright, so we have hearts. Now, the hearts don't do anything yet. We don't have keys and lightning bolt there. They don't do anything, but now we go to level 2, and hey look, we got hearts. Now again, this doesn't do anything yet. Again, it jumps a little hard to do. So we're going to have to set that up. But now we have our HUD heads-up display. Our HUD system is now displaying inside our game. So that's great. Okay, so for this next portion of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to set it up to where when we start level 2, or we get into level 2, we're going to make it to where our player can grab this key and open this door. The door will not open if we don't have the key. So it'll tell us a message and let us know. And when we restart, look at that. We die, it restarts to level 2. So we need it set up to where our key actually functions and the door actually opens where we can walk through it. So that is what we're going to focus on at this time. So in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to select our player object. So let's actually load up level 2 since we keep things all clean. Save everything. And we're going to select our player, and we're going to add a new Boolean object to that. So go to our player, and if you look down here under variables, we're going to add a new variable. You can do the same thing right here if you like. That's the same thing as this. And we're going to add something, and we're going to call it has key. So capital H, capital K. We're going to add that, and then we're going to make this a Boolean object, true or false. If it's true, we want it to do something. If it's false, we want it to do something else. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to set it up. We need to go to our key, okay, because there's a key in this level. So let's go to level, find key. By the way, go back up and save that. So apply that to your player before you switch off of it. Go to key. And under key, we need to make it to where you can pick this key up. And when the player picks this key up, it sets that variable of, hey, you have a key, and it deletes this little object. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to set up a new graph with this key. So we're going to add a flow machine. So let's add a flow machine to the key, and let's set up a new macro. And let's put that under macros and call it key. Okay? Now, this is not going to be real difficult because remember we set up that macro, or that super unit, that is called on collision with. Now, instead of going into my macro folder and saying, hey, I'm going to grab the on collision with, I remember what it's called. And so I'm going to right click and I'm going to do on collision with. And there you go. So this is the same thing as grabbing it from over here and putting it in there. So I really like how Bolt did that. You can just right click and say, hey, go get this, and it does. You don't have to go find it. So when you collide with the player, this is what I need you to do. So set variable. So we're going to set an object variable. Which object variable are we going to set? Remember, we put on the player, we put an object variable called has key. So we have to type that one in because it's not on our object. It is now because I just typed it in, but it's not on. It wasn't on that object. When you interact, when your objects interact with each other, set the Boolean, set this function to true, and sorry, just making sure I was recording. Sometimes I do that. I forget that I'm going to record. So when you interact with the player, set the key out action for the player, set the has key option to true, so because that's selected, now it's true. And then when you're done, what I want you to do is destroy, see, game object destroy yourself. So what this is doing is that when the player picks up the key, it's going to set the option of that player. It's going to set their the object variable, which is under player, has key, to true. So let's see that now. Action. Let's see if that works. Okay, so now, look, I've got this object variable right here. So what should happen is the key should pick up. Whoops, come on, get up there. The key destroyed itself, and did you notice that the Boolean down here changed to true? So that functions, but it doesn't do anything yet. So we're going to have to fix that. That's the next thing on the list. So we're going to affect the door. Now that we've got the key, we need the door to work correctly. Before we leave the key, let's go ahead and apply all of that to the prefab. So override, apply. Now let's go to the door. So the door is going to need a flow machine, because when we enter the door, this is what I was telling you about really big versus really small. Now I have to zoom in way far on this scene manager. That's the canvas. So when we get to the door, that door is not going to let you go through it. But when we change it to a different prefab, which is the door open, then you'll be able to walk through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to door, over here on door. We're going to add a flow machine to that. And then we're going to set up a new macro for that. So go to new, and then navigate to your macros folder, hit door, or type in door, hit enter. And so now we're in this new flow unit. Okay, so what you're gonna, you don't need either one of these things. You can just delete both of those. Again, we're going to do an on collision with, so I'm just going to grab it and show you it does the same thing. Just drop it right there. When the door interacts with the player, and you have key. So get variable. Come on. Get variable. Alright, sometimes again you have to do this. You have to right click, get variable, get object variable. It didn't like it for some, I think it's because that's a kind of a custom unit. It didn't like me doing that. It wants to go to the things that are normal. But anyway, so since we set that up, you might have to select off of that. But we're going to select has key. So go find the object player and see if the has key, if it has key, is true. If it does, so we're going to do a branch here. So it's joining these two arguments together. It's joining these two. So go check it out. Go find that. If it does, then we want you to do a, we're going to change the door. So we're going to set enabled box collider 2D. Now this one's kind of hard to find when you type it in, so it takes a minute. So just kind of scroll down. You're looking for a little green box. Box collider 2D, not box collider. Box collider 2D. And if that's true, then we want to set yourself to a new sprite. So set sprite. So sprite is a image file. Set sprite. Sprite renderer. So we're looking for renderer. Oh goodness, it's in there somewhere. There it is. Set sprite. Sprite renderer. That's not it. Okay. Let's do add unit. Set sprite renderer. Goodness, this one's hard to find. Set sprite. Where's it at? It's not image. Sprite. I can't remember how I found this one. Sprite renderer. Set size. Set sprite. There it is. Okay. So sprite renderer. If you type in sprite renderer, set sprite. That's what you're looking for. So what we want you to do is we want you to set it to, and you'll click on that, and because this is all preloaded, you downloaded all these things. It's going to go find a sprite, and the one that you're looking for is door open. So where's door open? Door open, door open. How about letter D, John? That's smart. Door open. Okay, so now, because this door closed actually in the scene, now, if it is true, so we're going to label this as player has key, and I'm going to set that as blue. Hooray, you did it. And if it's false, so if it's true, I want you to change to door open. If it's false, then I want you to send a message to the debug log. So debug log, send a message. Send a message. What message do you want me to send? String, and you could display this in any way, but this is the way they have it set up, and it just goes to the message log. Missing key, right? All right, so this is bad. This is not good, player. You don't have the key. So for me, I'm going to say missing key, and we're going to label that as red. There we go. All right, oops. There we go. And stretch that out. Whatever. All right, so now when the player comes in contact with the door, we should see that he will, when he doesn't have the key, goes into the door. Let's see if we can load. All right, so watch this. Should work. Let's find out. All right. Oh no, you don't have the key. Look at your console log. That's where that debug log is sending at, and it actually, see there how it kind of went that like that blood through the vein image graphic, whatever you want to call that. But when you have the key, it should say, yay, you had the key, and now the door opens and you can go to the next level. So that is that tutorial. That was pretty simple, but what we need to do real quick is we need to set up the key in the HUD, the heads-up display. In other words, whenever you grab the key, we want the key symbol to light up, and we also want it to whenever there is a key. See, I grabbed the key but it didn't light up. Also want it to when we're in a level without a key, like this one, I don't want to see that. That's not supposed to be there. So let's fix that to where that is the way it works. So we're going to save this real quick. We're going to go to the heads up display level. So go to your scene, go to HUD, and select the key row. So under row, hit key, and what we're going to do to that object is we're going to add a flow machine. And this time, instead of setting up a new macro, we're going to set up embedded, which means it is embedded only in this object, and this can't be grabbed or shared across anything else. So we're going to delete the update for now. Let's start with the start event. And what we're going to do is a null check. So what a null check is either it has something or it doesn't. If it doesn't have something, then it's null. But if it does have something, then we're going to have this effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this on start. We're going to have it find with tag. So we're going to have a game object with a tag. And the tag is key. Now I believe if you look on the key object, let me go find that real quick. It should have the key, the tag key, and it does. So that's why we do it that way. So find key. If it has it, then do something. If it doesn't have it, then don't do something. So if it has it, or if it's null, then what we're going to do is we're going to set active game object to set yourself to false. Right? So that's what that's saying. Set yourself to false. Now we're going to do the update part of this. So we need it to constantly update every frame. If you grab the key and it has, you know, if you got that key, great. So what this is doing is the level is checking for key. Level checking for, oops, at the start. We don't need this running every frame. Just do it at the beginning. It's fine. So that is kind of a check. So I'm just doing that as yellow. Again, do what you want. So now we need the update. So update. And we're going to do this every frame. You're going to set sprite, set the image, set your sprite, set yourself, and we need to know, so we're going to do a select branch here because it's not just two things. It's going the other direction. And let me go back over here real quick. So what I want you to do, we'll come back into that in just a second because this makes sense explaining it this other way. Find with tag. I want you to find with tag the player. Go look at the player. Update. Go look at the player. Every frame. Go look at the player. If the player get variable object. Ugh. Come on, dude. Get variable. Dude, it does not like that. Let me try it this way. Get variable. Get object variable. If the player has key, remember because we set an object variable on the player, if player has key, then if it's true, give it the sprite HUD key sprite literal. Go find the HUD key full. So again, you might not understand what I'm doing. I'll explain it a little better, or try to here in just a second. HUD key full. If it's false, HUD key false. So we need a sprite literal and set yourself to HUD key empty. So what those are, those sprites, if you look over here on your screen, you'll see a HUD key, your heads-up display key is empty. So it's empty key. That's just two different pictures. And so what it's saying here is update, check yourself, because this is on the key prefab. Go check and see if the player has key. If the player has key, when you picked up the key, if it does, if it's true, then set yourself to the full key sprite. If it doesn't, then continue to let yourself be the empty sprite. Now again, this isn't going to use a lot of processing because it's very simple. Just go check. So it does that every frame. That's what the update function does. So let's go ahead and label this as key sprite check, key sprite player check. I don't care. Call it whatever you want. Just something that's helpful for you to understand how exactly that works. So again, I'm making it yellow because it's checking for something. I'll make it green because it's actually doing something. It's not just checking, it's doing something. I guess everything is doing something. But whatever. Anyway, you get the idea. What this is doing up here is it's checking the level for the key. So on the start, see if there's a key tag over here. Now again, let me just do an experiment here real quick. Let's make a new empty and let's call it, I don't know, let's call it poop. Okay, so what this is doing here, and I'm going to give the poop a new tag. Let's call it enemy. So go and find the tag enemy. And it's going to check if there is any kind of enemy in there. Now, we don't need that, so I'm going to Control Z and back that off to where you don't need these things. But basically, that's what it's doing. It's saying go check for the key. If there's a key in the level, something with a key tag in the level, then it's not null. If it's null, then set active game object. If it's not in the level, it's not going to do that. It's not going to show up in the level. So just to give you an idea on how this is going to work, let's go real quick to the level, just real quick, and see if that works. How long is this video? This video seems kind of long. Goodness, 17 minutes. Okay, let's get this going. Trying to slow down to make sure I explain everything, and click load level 1. Now, level 1, there is no key. So that should be the case. So you don't see a key prefab up there. You do see the lightning bolt, but you don't see the key. Now, in this one, there is a key. And you should be able to grab that. It lights up, look at that, and goes to the next level. There's no key in level 3. So you don't see it. And there's no key in level 4, which, yeah, that's how that works. Just really quickly, I know I want to, this is a long one, but I want to explain something real quick because we're going to see this a lot. They do this thing in the tutorial called the Singleton principle. And the best I can understand it, so when you go to level 1 and you click on your player prefab here, this graph comes up. What they want you to do is they want you to add a start event. So basically it says when you start, so just click start, that'll work. When you click start, what I want you to do is I want you to set the application variable. Set application variable, which is this right over here on your variable. Set application variable to player. And I want you to do it on yourself. What this is going to do is it's going to set up a principle that is going to run all the way across the game. It's called the Singleton. You have to check that. Why it's called the Singleton. I guess this guy discovered this, named Singleton. That seems to make sense to me. I don't know. Anyway, so the Singleton principle, this is going to set the application variable on this player all the way across the game every time you enter a new level. And we're going to be able to implement that and use that as we go on. So this is the controller player macro. It's setting that application variable on the player on everything. And when it's done, essentially the reason why we're doing this is if you go back to, let me go back to the HUD. So let me save this and go back to the HUD. There is a concept in this game where, where's that? Where was that thing? It's under get key, I think, right? That's where we were at. Okay, so yeah, so what it's saying here is that I want to go find with tag, and they're saying like, look, that's a good thing to do. You can do that, and it's not going to slow you down when your game is small, but that's not very reliable. Sometimes it breaks, and so the way to fix that is to use the Singleton principle and delete that game object, and then instead of saying find with tag, do get variable application variable. Just go get the player, the thing that is marked player, go get that in the application. Check your application variable, which when we start the game you'll see on the player is marked under the application variable. Just real quick, I know we're really long on that, but let me load that up and let's make sure that that actually is functioning the way that it is supposed to function. So the Singleton principle is saying when you start, give yourself the player application variable, and there you go. That's what it's doing. So that key function is saying check if there's something that has the player application variable. Now we're in level 2, and it's going to do that. So that's, instead of saying look with tag, it's looking with that. So apparently that's better system. I don't know how they figured that out, but over, I guess, building the system, they would probably know.